what she made me do. I like your dolls. I think I'm safe. Hi everyone, Scott Player, pop cult fan here, and I just saw the new Conjuring film, The Conjuring Last Rites. I saw it last night with my mom and my sister, actually, and I'm ready to give my full review of this film. Now, I've seen the first two movies. The first two films are some of my favorite horror films within the past decade, and the third film, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, it had when it came out, it was released in theaters, but was also released on HBO Max simultaneously, like a simultaneous release between theaters and streaming. And I saw that on HBO Max instead of theaters. And I only saw the third film once, and haven't rewatched it ever since. But this fourth film, which is considered the final film in the main Conjuring series, aside from all the spin-offs. It's technically considered the final fourth film, but it did do well at the box office, and you know what that means with money, money, money. You know what that means. But yeah, this movie, I do think I like this one more than the third film. Because it is capping off the main Conjuring series with these characters that we've been following ever since the 2013 original. And I love these characters. We've been following them for so long. Both Ed and Lorraine Warren, played by Patrick Wilson, and Vera Farmiga. You care about them, and they're these famous paranormal investigators, and not just in these films, but also the real people that these movies are inspired on, that really were actual paranormal investigators. And that's something I've always liked about these movies, because they are in a way kind of based on true stories, and I was always fascinated by that. And also, before this movie came out, before this film was released in theaters a few weeks ago, the person that kept the real Annabelle doll actually passed away, and I'm not sure what the cause of death was exactly, but it was kind of a little bit creepy, because the real Annabelle doll still does exist. It looks completely different than what it does in the movies, but the fact that the person that previously had it passed away is a little unsettling, especially before this movie came out. And wow. But yeah, this movie, I think, has a story that has been done before. I will say that, it does a lot of what we've seen before, not just with the Conjuring films, but with other films and other franchises that have done this whole haunted house business before in so many other horror films. We've seen this story done before, and as a result of that, it doesn't have that same kind of unique charm as the original film did. Granted, the original Conjuring film, that didn't do anything new or different either. It was also something we've seen before, just with various mixed elements that we've seen in multiple different kinds of horror films, just put together in one, and which I do think is what helped the original Conjuring film do so as well as it did, because it mixed different elements of several different kinds of horror films. And I think with what they do here with this fourth film, with Last Rites, it is satisfying. They do have a pretty good concluding Ed and Lorraine's story by the end of this film, and I really like it for that. If you ask me, for those of you that are also into superhero stuff, the ending of this movie kind of reminded me of the ending of the Superman and Lois TV show. It reminded me of that a little bit. That's all I'm gonna say about the ending. That's all I'm gonna say. The ending of this movie reminded me of the ending, the series finale of Superman and Lois, and it was satisfying. I thought it was a very touching ending. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, and also, I think another thing about this movie that I also liked was the fact that we got to follow Judy as well, Lorraine and Ed's daughter, and I was looking her up. The actress Mia. I don't want to butcher this. Mia Tomlinson, I think that's how you pronounce her last name. The actress that played Judy in this movie. I thought she was pretty well performed. I thought she was a great actress in this role. I liked that we also got to follow not just Ed and Lorraine Warren, but her and her boyfriend Tony. Ben Hardy. I thought I recognized him. He was in X-Men Apocalypse. I thought Ben Hardy as Tony was an interesting character in this movie as well, mainly because both Judy and Tony were boyfriend and girlfriend, and I was curious where they were going to take his character because I wasn't sure, and I was surprised with their arc throughout the film, and as a couple, and it provided for some heartwarming and touching moments throughout the film as a result, and I liked it for that. I think, and also when I was looking at Mia Tomlinson, the actress that played Judy, she's actually my age. She was born literally one day after me on May 31st, 1995. That is cool. She's literally the same age as me. She was only born one day after I was. So I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, so the story here, it's a story that I do think is very much very faithful to previous installments in this series. And what they do in the third act, like, it got a little crazy in the third act. Admittedly, it got a little crazy, but I kind of didn't mind how crazy the third act got, because this was kind of like the last hurrah, the last of Big Bang, the last of Rites of the Conjuring main film series, aside from all the spin-offs, and I kind of liked the direction they went with what they were doing, but it was a little bit predictable, admittedly. There was an aspect of the story, especially with Judy's character, that I did think was a little bit predictable, and which kind of goes into that MacGuffin. There's a bit of a MacGuffin in this film, similar to the first two Conjuring films. There's a MacGuffin, like, object, like this mirror with these, like, baby heads on the top of the mirror, and I wasn't sure what they were going to do with that, but at the same time that was also a tad bit predictable, but it was interesting. Like, I was curious about the lore and backstory of this new, like, evil threat in this film. I was curious about the evil threat in this film, because of this mirror that we see in the beginning of the film, and it was fascinating. And I've seen so many horror films now, I don't really get jump scared anymore. So I mean, there are jump scares in this movie, but they are effective. Like, there are effective jump scares in this film, but at the same time, you do know what's there ahead of time before the jump scare happens, and I think when you build up to a jump scare, that's more effective to me, and they do, I think, do a decent job with that in this film, and yeah, I think this is a decent film. Out of all these Conjuring films, my favorite is probably the second one. I like the second one the best, The Conjuring 2, and then the original film, and then this one, Last Rites, and then the third film, Devil Made Me Do It. That would be my ranking of the 4 Conjuring films that we've got. Second film, original film, this one, Last Rites, and the third film, Devil Made Me Do It. That would be my ranking. So if I had to give this a grade, I think I would definitely give this, I'd say about a B+. I think that'd be my grade for it, a B+. So it is a satisfying conclusion to the series. It is. I think it does a decent enough job of kind of not necessarily ending the whole franchise, because, like I said, this movie did so well at the box office. It's the highest grossing film in the franchise now, and they've already talked about wanting to do like a prequel to they've already talked about wanting to do more, so it's not the end of the franchise. And I've said this time and again in my older videos, I don't like when franchises are running forever. I don't. I feel like some franchises should at some point end. They shouldn't keep going forever. I need to stress that enough whenever I talk about like movie franchises or TV franchises. I don't like when they're I don't like when they keep going, and I prefer when at least some franchises actually have an end. I want them to have an end, and unfortunately, even though this is considered the fourth and final film in the main Conjuring series, this franchise is still going to continue for the near future. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But overall, it was a decent film. If you're a Conjuring fan, you'll definitely really like this one. Just, temper your expectations a little bit. It doesn't do anything new or different with the genre, but it's a decent concluding end to Ed and Lorraine's journey throughout these 4 films. And even Annabelle Comes Home to a degree. So, yeah, that should do it for this review. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.